Woods. I'm with the Shelby County Health Department. I am the trainer for environmental health and food safety. And I brought my coworker with me. Her name is Raylon Reeves. And today, I thank the chef because he did mention some things that you all do need to know. Those who are already in business know some of them, and those who are getting ready to start. This is some information that has just changed for Shelby County. For many years, Shelby County was inspecting using a 1975 food code. Well, this past July, we adopted the 2009 food code. And so there are a lot of changes that came down the pipeline and a lot of things that are different about the way that we inspect and do our inspections. And I'm going to give you a little bit of that information today, okay? All right, so we've got every year, roughly 1 in 6 Americans get sick, or 48 million people, 128,000 are hospitalized, and 3,000 die of foodborne illness or disease, okay? So that's a lot of people. And as the chef was talking to you about, if you take some of the courses, the Serve Safe course, or you even, if you have an opportunity, we offer a food handlers course, and it's free. It's offered every second Wednesday of the month, and I teach it out at Mullen Station, and you can get that information from me. But this is what we're talking about. Foodborne illness costs the U.S. an estimated $152 billion annually. That's a lot of money. And imagine if your business is the one that's part of that issue. So what would a foodborne outbreak involving your establishment mean to you? What would it mean to you? You're sitting right here. I know you got a business.
Well, it would mean for me, it's definitely important, but it would mean literally almost a shutdown.
Absolutely.
Because, yeah.
Absolutely. Just like the chef said, if you make someone sick, and you all know now, they can find out quickly because of social media, right?
Yes.
Tweet, swap, whatever, however they do. Yeah, that, all of those things, pin, whatever. Soon as someone gets sick, and especially if they go to the doctor and get diagnosed with a foodborne illness, they are going to first call an attorney who's going to tell them, go ahead and call the restaurant and see what information you can get. But they're going to sue you. You're going to get sued. Your reputation is going to be at stake. You're going to lose revenue. So that's why it's important that you follow some of the guidelines that we're going to talk about today. So, the CDC says that there are 5 foodborne illness risk factors that contribute to the foodborne illness, okay? So 80% of our inspection now is geared toward these 5 foodborne illness risk factors. We no longer come out and look at floors, walls, and ceilings. Y'all know we used to write all that stuff up all the time, you know, dirty floor, dirty wall. Yeah, if your floors and walls are dirty, we are going to write them up, but that's not what our inspection is centered around. 80% of our inspections, you can get all 5 over here. All right, don't go back. Yes. 80% of our inspection is centered around improper hot, cold holding and cooling of time temperature control for safety foods, improper cooking temperatures, dirty and or contaminated utensils and equipment, poor employee health and hygiene, and food from unsafe sources. So these are the 5 things that the Center for Disease Control says contribute to a foodborne illness. And I'm going to talk about it. Go ahead. So we say hot foods must stay hot at 135 or above, and many of you, if you've been in the industry for a while, you know that that temperature used to be 140.
Right, yeah.
But the CDC dropped it down to 135. Okay. Hot. Cold foods must stay cold at 41 or below. Now, for many years, we used to do 45.
Right.
Then we dropped down to 41. Okay. So time is a public health control. It's time instead of temperature may be used as a public health control if written procedures are prepared in advance that specify which foods are used until. Food is marked to indicate the time that food is taken out of temperature control, and food is served within 4 hours or discarded after 4 hours. Now, that's something totally different from the way we used to inspect. We never told you you could take food out, not hold it at 135, that you had 4 hours that you could hold, and then after that, you needed to discard it. But with the new guidelines, time as a public health control is something that not a lot, but most of your sushi locations will be using this, because to our understanding, sushi rice does not work well if you hold it cold. It does not work well if you hold it hot, but it works really well if it's held at room temperature. And as you know, if anything is held at room temperature for too long, what starts to happen? bacteria starts to grow. So that's why there's time as a public health control. We're saying you're gonna cook that food to the proper temperature, and once you take it out of temperature, you're gonna hold it for 4 hours, and then if you have not used it all up, you're saying, I'm gonna throw it away, okay? All right. So we've got rapid cooling is essential to prevent the growth that could cause foodborne illness. Time temperature for control for safety foods must be cooled to 41 degrees or less within 6 hours. Our cooling process used to be 4 hours. Now, with the new food code, we give you a total of 6 hours to cool food down. But it is a 2-step process, and you must follow the 2 steps. You must bring the food from 135 to 70 in 2 hours, and then from 70 to 41 in 4 hours, okay? So, 2 steps, 135 to 70 in 2 hours, 70 to 41 in 4 hours. You cannot take that food directly from hot to the refrigerator or the freezer. You've got to follow those 2 steps, okay? And when you follow those 2 steps, you're gonna help prevent the growth of bacteria, all right? Now, if you don't get that food item down to 70 in 2 hours, what do you think you need to do?
Discard.
Who said discard? Y'all want to throw away everything, don't you? You're a business now. You're trying to save money. You're trying to make money. You don't want to throw everything away. If you don't get it down to 70 in 2 hours, you can reheat it and then start the cooling process over, okay? But you have to get it to 70 degrees first before you can put it in the refrigerator. Okay, listen. So cooking is the only food preparation step that will actually kill bacteria. Verify your proper cook temp by using a calibrated thermometer, and temperature laws are recommended. Anybody know why we recommend you keep temperature laws? Yes.
So you keep documentation in case you're ever inspected.
There you go. And really not so much about us inspecting you, but what
Also
else?
say you keep your own personal register.
Lawsuits.
Right.
I'm not saying you won't get sued. It may happen, but if you can show due diligence as the owner of your establishment that you are really concerned about serving safe, sound food to the public, it may help. It shows that I am concerned about what I'm doing. I'm just not in this kitchen throwing food out. I take my temperatures, I log them down. And you may be able to go back to that particular day in that particular food item and say, hey, on this day we did take the temperature of those chicken breasts that we were cooking, and they were all in proper temp. Still doesn't mean that they might not sue you, but you do have documentation. Very good. So which foods must be cooked to 165 degrees for 15 seconds? Anybody know?
Poultry.
Poultry. Poultry. Come on. Stuffed foods or stuffing, casseroles, raw animal foods cooked in a microwave, and reheated time temperature control for safety foods, okay? Now what that means is that you must cook that food item to 165 degrees. It must hold 165 at the thickest part for 15 seconds, okay? That's minimal internal cooking temperatures. So which foods must be cooked to 155 for 15 seconds?
Baked goods.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Baked goods.
Hamburger, sausage, injected meats, and eggs for hot holding. Pork used to be 155. Okay, you can go on. Did we skip one? Go back. Oh, yeah. Okay, go to the next one. Well, pork used to be 155, but it dropped down to 145. So you got your fish, your pork, and eggs for immediate service that can be cooked to 145. And remember, pork, and when it says pork, it's talking about your pork chops, your pork loin. It's not talking about sausage, because pork sausage still has to be cooked to 155. Okay. So prevention of cross-contamination is wash hands after handling raw meat, wash, rinse, sanitize all food contact surfaces that touch raw meat, prepare raw meat in an area away from other foods, use separate cutting board for raw meat, store raw meat below other foods in the refrigerator, and store meat with highest cooking temp, chicken below meat with the lower cooking temp. Why do we need to do that?
Cross-contamination.
Absolutely, but what is the cross-contamination that's going to occur? Absolutely. If you do not store that chicken at the very bottom and you store it over any other food item, poultry has the highest cooking temp, right? The other foods have a lower cooking temp. If you cook them to their temp, you have not killed the salmonella. You will have killed their bacteria, but you will not have killed the salmonella. So it's always important, if there is any raw poultry in your establishment, it needs to always go on the bottom. All right. Food contact surfaces must always be washed, rinsed, and sanitized. Go ahead. Between raw and ready-to-eat foods when dirty or contaminated, or at least every 4 hours if used continuously. And I'd like to ask this question. Can you think of any place that uses a piece of equipment continuously?
McDonald's.
The deli, the meat slicer. Lenny's, the meat slicer. Do you think they breaking it down every 4 hours? Wash, rinse, and sanitize?
Yes, Miss Health Department, we break it down.
I'm so happy to hear that, Chef. I'm not accusing anybody of anything, so don't go and say, Miss Wood said you ought not break it down. Clean it every 4 hours. I'm just giving you food for thought, giving you something to think about. That's all. Go ahead. All right, so go ahead. You have your chemical sanitization products that you can use. And chlorine is 50 to 200 parts per million, and quartz is based on the manufacturer instructions. Go ahead. And then you can sanitize by hot water. The water needs to be 171 degrees, and the contact time is 30 seconds. So that slide is out of place. That's what happened. Go on, we skipped it now. Yeah, there you go. All right. So, poor personal health and hygiene, proper hand washing, employee illness policy, and no bare hand contact with ready-to-eat food. These are some new things. Before, when we inspected, we watched and made sure that you washed your hands. But now we are really required to spend time with what we call the PIC, the person in charge. Walk around with them, talk to them, ask them questions, and find out how the operation is really being run. And one of the things that you are required to have on file is an employee illness policy. Anyone knows what that policy must incorporate? Okay, we'll talk about it. Food workers, even if they look and feel healthy, may spread viruses and bacteria. Good personal hygiene keeps harmful germs from getting on food. Wash hands frequently. Use a barrier, gloves, or utensils when handling ready-to-eat foods. Look at this. Food workers, even if they look and feel healthy, may spread viruses. And I'm gonna pick on Chef Bean because I know her. She looks good today, right? Does she look sick to you? No. But Chef Bean could be walking around with hepatitis A and you not know. Really? You're laughing.
No, I'm like just picking on it.
I love her.
You'll find out.
You can't look at someone and determine if they're walking around with the virus. People with Hep A can walk around for about 15 to 50 days and not know that they have hepatitis A. And if they are not washing their hands or practicing very good hand hygiene and handling ready-to-eat food with their little grubby, dirty hands, you will get sick. Some of you may not remember, we had a hepatitis A outbreak several years ago. And we had some workers, people who worked in the food industry that made some people sick because they didn't know that they had Hep A, and they were putting the lettuce and the tomatoes and the pickles on your hamburgers and things, and they didn't have any gloves or use any type of barrier. They just picked it up with their little hands and put it on your food. So that is part of what we're doing with our inspection now. We're coming out, we're making sure that you understand employee health and hygiene. All right, so tell me about this scenario. Mary works for a catering company. A few days ago, she was working a catering event, serving hot food on the line. She did not use gloves, but used spoons and tongs to serve the food. All right. The manager noticed that Mary made multiple trips to the bathroom during her 4-hour shift. The restroom had soap, separate hot and cold water, and a working hot air dryer with no paper towels. Each time Mary used the restroom, she washed her hands quickly and dried them on her apron. So, anything wrong with that first paragraph? It says she didn't use gloves, but the thing we want you to understand is that we say there needs to be a protective barrier, and gloves is not your only protective barrier. Tongue, spoon, spatula, anything that keeps you from touching that food with your dirty hands. And I know I keep saying that. I got an issue with dirty hands. I just do. I'm sorry, I do. All right, so you can hit the button. All right, so nothing wrong there. The manager noticed that Mary made multiple trips to the bathroom during her 4-hour shift. Anything wrong there?
The whole sentence.
Yes.
What should the manager have done?
Stopped her on the second trip and pretty much sent her home.
Did he need to send her home or should he?
had to send her home.
What did he-
Find out what the
He needed to ask Mary. You know, Mary, you got something going on? Do you have diarrhea? Are you buzzing? Let me say this. It is not a HIPAA violation to ask your food service workers, okay, questions. Because part of that employee health policy and demonstration of knowledge that you all have to meet as owners of your establishment requires that you know what's going on in there. So you have a right to go and say, nah, no, you've been to the bathroom a couple times. What's going on? Ask. Don't just let Mary say, well, no, I'm okay. No, Mary, are you vomiting? You had diarrhea. That's what you need to ask. Well, Mary says, no, I don't. I took a diuretic. Then you good. Okay, Mary, I just needed to know. All right, good. All right. Next thing. Bring it back. Anything wrong? Anything wrong there, guys?
Yeah.
All right. What's wrong?
You can't take the apron in the bathroom.
Yeah, she should have first of all taken on in there with the apron on, and then she dried her hands on the apron. Exactly. Okay. So yeah, they have poor hand washing and inadequate supplies. Was there really inadequate supplies? But there was that hot air dryer. Okay, and they have those hot air dryers in the bathrooms. I hate them. I hate them. I hate them. Okay? Why? Because if you don't think it through, you just can't have the hot hand dryer and require that I turn the faucets on or off. You need the censoring tank. Then I don't need to have to open the door with my hand and get out. Because you just defeated the whole purpose of me washing my hands. Now, I mean, I'm about saving the trees. I am. I get that. So if they have the hot air dryers, I think that they just haven't thought it all the way through. You know, they look at, we don't have to have paper towels, and then I don't have to worry about my floor being dirty, because when the health department comes, they won't write me up about all these paper towels on the floor. But you have to go a little step further. You got to think about how you're going to keep the people from cross-contaminating their hands. Okay. Here's another scenario. Phil works as a sandwich artist at a local sandwich shop. Before the store opens, he cleans the entire area and sets up the prep line. The store opens and the first customer orders a toasted roast beef sub. Phil washes his hands and puts on a clean pair of gloves and begins to prepare the sandwich. He slices the bread and adds the meat and cheese and places the sandwich in the oven. When it is toasted, he adds lettuce, tomatoes, and dressing per the customer's request and cuts the sandwich in half. Then another employee brings up the order and takes that customer's money while Phil makes the next customer's sandwich. Anything wrong with the first paragraph? Absolutely. Second paragraph?
There's the glove change. Yeah, meat.
Why does he need to change his glove?
Meat, cheese, lettuce, tomato, that's something might be related to something.
Did he change his task though?
It doesn't matter. Still, it's different ready to eat from the products that it's talking.
Only if the person that you're getting ready to prepare that sandwich for says, hey, I'm allergic to something, then you need to change your gloves. But if you're just standing there making the same, you have a move, then you're not required to do that. Okay? Next. What about the last part? Any problem with the last part?
He needs to change law.
But then you just stated that he's not moving from that.
Phil didn't move now. Phil's
Right,
still
so
making
I guess
sandwiches.
it's
Somebody
okay.
else
I guess it's okay.
taking money?
Right, so it's okay.
Depends on what the sandwich is.
Yeah, depends on who the customer is.
Right.
It's not a roast beef.
It might be
Going into that chicken.
The chicken is not raw. That chicken is all ready to eat. Come on.
I'm like you though.
Okay, so no bare hand contact with ready-to-eat foods. It's a violation involving bare hand contact with ready-to-eat foods that will be taken beginning July 1. However, the state decided that we would do what we call a soft rollout. And there are some violations on the new inspection report that we are just assessing. We're coming into the establishment and talking to the PIC about them. observing how the employees are doing with those particular violations, but we're not taking the points if you are out of compliance. Okay. So what kinds of foods are considered ready to eat? Keep going there. Washed fruits and vegetables served raw, sandwich meats and cheese, bread, toast, rolls, and baked goods, garnishes such as lettuce, parsley, lemon wedges, and pickles, ice for consumption, and any food that has been thoroughly cooked and is ready to eat. Okay? All right. Go ahead. So food workers must report the following symptoms to the person in charge: diarrhea, vomiting, jaundice, sore throat with fever, and infected lesions on their hands or arms. That is part of that employee health policy. If you do not have an employee illness policy on file, when your inspector comes out, ask them. We have a sample copy that you can use, or you can, do it yourself. But it must state these particular symptoms. You are required in that policy to state that your employees must report these things to you. And then they must, go back. Okay, go ahead. Food from an unsafe source. All food served to customers must come from sources that comply with law. I think I got another slide out of place. Food workers may not, this one, food workers may not work with food if diagnosed with infections that can spread through food. Salmonella, Shigella, E. coli, hepatitis A, and norovirus. Anyone know how contagious norovirus is? Well, let me tell you. That young lady that young man back there standing around that corner right there. Let's say he has norovirus. And he starts to throw up and he can't get out of this room. He throws up in that corner. All of us. Everybody.
Yep.
We're going to have norovirus. That's how contagious it is. Quickly. It's a virus that spread through fecal oral, and it's also in the air droplets of the vomit. So that's why even if he's around that corner, but he's in this room with us and he vomits, we all gonna go, ugh, and I'm gonna go this way, somebody gonna go that way, but at some point in time, within 24 hours, you're gonna be heaving, they're gonna be heaving, everybody. It's that disease that they talk about on the cruise ship, and when they talk about it, everybody gets sick. So that's why it's important that you not have any bare hand contact with ready-to-eat food. No bare hand contact with ready-to-eat food helps prevent the spread of Hep A and norovirus. Okay. So the changes to the new food code, which we adopted the 2009 food code, which was implemented on July 1, people. Okay? These slides that are coming next are going to talk about those specific things. So go ahead. So you have the manager certification demonstration of knowledge. So the person in charge will be required to demonstrate appropriate food safety knowledge 3 ways. Okay. Manager certification, or having an inspection with no priority item violations. Priority items are now what used to be critical violations. If you look at that old inspection report, the items that were in red were called the critical violations. We are now using the term priority violations, or answering food safety questions. And as Chef Buchanan mentioned, the manager certification is ServSafe. You can go on their website. We offer a food handlers course. I do the class every second Wednesday of the month, and that will help with answering the food safety questions. Certainly you want to not have any priority violations on your inspection, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. It may happen every once in a while. Okay, go ahead. Next thing is date marking. Why is date marking important? Anybody know?
For example, when food expires.
Right,
Okay, you need to know when food expires, but there's something, a bacteria we're concerned with. Anybody know what it is? Go ahead. Listeria. Date marking is a means to control the growth of listeria, and it's a bacteria that grows at refrigerated temperature. So food that's sitting in the refrigerator actually can grow a bacteria, and it grows listeria. And date marking is a system that identifies how old foods are and when those foods should be discarded before the bacteria can cause foodborne illness. And you have a maximum, go ahead, of 7 days. So refrigerated, ready to eat TCS foods prepared and held in a food establishment for 24 hours, more than 24 hours, shall be date marked to indicate when the food must be sold, consumed, or discarded. That is how date marking works. You don't put the date, today's date, because you opened it. The date mark needs to say when it's going to be discarded, consumed, or sold, okay? I was in an establishment and he had his dates, you know, on his food product. It really looked good. And my question was, well, is this the date that you're supposed to be discarding this food? And he said, oh, no, no, no. I just opened it today. I had to take the violation. I didn't want to do it, but I did. Date marking has to indicate whether it's going to be, the date is going to be consumed, sold, or discarded. You have 7 days is your maximum. So if you prepare chicken salad today, when would you need to throw it away? Today is the 25th, so.
Second of next month.
I thought it was 3 days storage.
Not for what we're talking about. Who said the first? That's when you have to throw it away. Because day 1 is today, okay? And then you have a total of 7 days. And let me say this, if you freeze something, say you did cook it today and you held it for today and tomorrow, and you put it in the freezer, that doesn't extend the time. When you take it out, you still only have 5 more days. It's gotta be discarded after that, okay? All right. So consumer advisory will be required if you serve or offer for sale raw or undercooked meat such as steak, hamburgers, sushi, ceviche, eggs, pork. So, who likes to eat their steaks? Not done. That's all I can say. Not done.
Me,
We already have the consumer advisory on the menus, because if you think about it, you see it. They tell you that you can get this food cooked this certain way, which is this reminder, the disclosure. And then you have the reminder down there that tells you if you eat it raw, what's going to happen to you. Okay, go ahead. If raw animal foods are served or offered for sale raw or undercooked, the consumer advisory will be required. Consumer advisory is written notification that foods are offered or served raw or undercooked, and it includes a disclosure. It's a description of the food. So, for example, hamburger can be cooked to order. Identifying such foods with an asterisk to a footnote that states that items are served raw or undercooked. And then a reminder. The footnote states one of the following. Written information available upon request or consuming raw or undercooked meats may increase your risk of foodborne illness, especially if you have certain medical conditions. They put that there because some conditions that you have can exacerbate a foodborne illness, whereas it wouldn't be a problem for someone else. Because, for instance, if you really like eating raw oysters and you also have cirrhosis of the liver, it's going to be really hard on you when you get sick. Many years ago when I worked at FBI, I worked a case where a gentleman came through Memphis and he loved eating raw oysters. He was from Texas, so pretty much everywhere he went, breakfast, lunch, he ate raw oysters. And he stayed here, I guess, about a week, and he went home and he died. And so it was like, oh, he died because he ate those raw oysters in Tennessee, so we got to figure out what's going on. Well, we did our investigation, and pretty much what had happened was he had cirrhosis of the liver. And he did come down with what we call Vibrio villanificus, but that is why he died, because his liver just wasn't functioning to the best anyway. So that's why they tell you, if you have certain medical conditions, it can increase your risk of getting a foodborne illness. Okay. So on this menu, tell me, what's your disclosure? Can you see it?
Contain raw eggs.
That's the disclosure, and where's the reminder?
Consumer raw and cooked meats for
Exactly. So a consumer advisory must have those 2 things. All right, go ahead. There's your disclosure, and there's your reminder. Next. The consumer advisory can be accomplished by utilizing reminder statements on the menu, placard, table tent, a brochure or pamphlet. The statement will be placed in another location on the menu, but reference the asterisk items. Okay. So, parasite destruction, and that basically deals with raw, partially cooked fish such as sushi fish. And this process that is talking about being frozen at a -4 degrees Fahrenheit for 7 days, or frozen and stored at -31 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 hours is a process that the fish has already gone through for most establishments that do sushi. When they get their fish in, that's what has already happened. Okay, come on. So this just talks about the different species that are exempt from the parasite destruction. Go Go ahead. And then we have specialized processing methods. And if you're doing any of these things in your establishment, we now will require a HACCP plan for you. You will be required to give us a HACCP plan, okay? So the changes that we discussed, manager certification, demonstration of knowledge, date marking, consumer advisory, no bare hand contact with ready-to-eat food, parasite destruction, and specialized processes. And these are all part of the updated food service law that went into effect on July 1. All right, and that's my contact information if you have any questions. Any questions? Yes.
Explain the tilt, one more, I may have missed it, I'm not sure.
Time is a public health control.
Okay.
That's what the tilt is. It used to be called temperature in lieu, time in lieu of temperature, but they switched to time as a public health control because that's what the food code says. We had come up with using tilt. But time as a public health control just simply means that, and the example I gave was the sushi rice. It's a product that doesn't work well being held cold, which means that you can't hold it at 41 or below. Or it doesn't work well if it's held hot, which means you can't hold it at 135 or above. It works well in the middle, 70 to 125, and that's where bacteria really like to grow. But it takes bacteria about 4 hours to really start growing and create a problem. So what you're saying is you're gonna make sure you cook that product to the proper temperature. When you take it out of holding it at hot, you're gonna have the time that you took it out, or either you're gonna have the time that you're gonna discard it, and the time is 4 hours. You only have 4 hours to use it, that we will allow it to be in that temperature danger zone. And the temperature danger zone is 41 to 135. And then after 4 hours, you're saying, if I have not used it all, I'm discarding. So the whole point is not to pull out a whole big container of it,
Fair enough.
you know, just leave it a little bit. Okay. Yes.
Does each county here in Tennessee follow the same rules as far as like?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Every county in Tennessee adopted this 2009 food code.
Okay, I have a question then. I work at a restaurant in another county, and they recently had an inspection with the health department, and it was told to me that it said to them that starting at the first of the year, they will not be able to sell over easy eggs. Is that true?
No, you can sell over easy eggs. You're just going to need to have that consumer advisory. That's the whole point. If you're not going to cook the food to the proper temperature, to the temperature that is required to be cooked at, and that's what that talks about. I'm one of those people who will eat my eggs over easy.
I told them, I said, that doesn't
No.
sound right. You probably have to put something on.
You have to have, yes, you have to have the consumer advisory because you're serving those eggs undercooked. Okay? Yeah. All right. Thank you.